Welcome back, bro. Step in, because tonight the atmosphere around your name feels heavier than ever. Someone high rank just warned others. Do not cross this one. Not in a dangerous way. Not a threat. Not harm. This warning is psychological, energetic, reputational. The kind of warning people give when they've seen someone's inner strength and know that disrespecting them will backfire emotionally, socially, spiritually. And that's exactly what's happening with you right now. A high-ranking figure, someone people listen to, someone whose opinion actually carries weight, just told others not to underestimate you, not to play games with you, not to test you emotionally, not to treat you like the old version of yourself, because you've reached a level of presence that people can feel before you even speak. This warning wasn't about power. It was about respect, about boundaries, about the emotional force you carry now that they can't handle. It was about the fact that you've evolved into someone whose silence has more weight than their entire influence. You didn't demand this respect. You didn't chase it. You didn't try to impress anyone. Your evolution spoke for you. And the people who truly pay attention, the ones with actual awareness, actual intuition, actual understanding, recognized something in you that others were too blind or too comfortable to see. You're not someone to toy with emotionally. You're not someone to talk down to. You're not someone to manipulate. You're not someone to underestimate anymore. The warning didn't come from fear of you. It came from fear of how badly they'll embarrass themselves if they misjudge you again. Because the last time someone tried to underestimate you, they ended up exposing their own weakness, their own insecurity, their own lack of emotional intelligence. You walked away from that situation without raising your voice, without losing your composure, without even defending yourself. And yet the entire room sided with you, because your energy said everything your words didn't. That moment didn't just change how people saw you, it changed how they talked about you. And it wasn't just normal people who noticed it. Higher-ups saw it. Leaders saw it. Mentally strong people saw it. Those with influence, authority, and emotional intelligence. They all recognized the shift in you. They saw the calmness. They saw the clarity. They saw the psychological endurance you now carry. They saw the way you held yourself when others tried to shake you. And they realized, you're not someone who loses control. You're someone who creates control. That's why the warning happened. It was less of a threat and more of a truth. Don't cross this one. They're not built like the rest. People with influence don't warn others lightly. They only speak up when they've watched long enough to understand what you are truly capable of. Not physically, but emotionally, mentally, energetically. You carry a level of emotional strength most people only pretend to have. You don't match energy. You override it. You don't mirror negativity. You dissolve it. You don't chase validation. You attract respect. You don't break under pressure. Pressure breaks under you. When someone high-ranking warns others about someone, it usually means they've seen something behind the scenes that others missed. And what they saw in you wasn't aggression, wasn't ego, wasn't chaos. It was alignment. Alignment so sharp it can cut through manipulation. Alignment so firm it can't be bent by guilt. Alignment so centered it can't be knocked off balance. Alignment so deep that no one can read you unless you allow them to. That's what scared them. Not you, your certainty. Certainty is intimidating to people who are still living in confusion. Certainty is frightening to those who rely on others being unsure. Certainty makes people nervous because it means you see through things. It means you notice dynamics. It means you understand motives. It means you won't be fooled by the games they play. And people who play games don't like being seen clearly. They don't like when someone walks into the room who can read the emotional temperature instantly. They don't like when someone can dissect manipulation without reacting. They don't like when someone can remain calm while they're trying to create chaos. You became that someone. And when you became that someone, high-ranking individuals understood something instantly. If someone tries to cross this one, they're going to embarrass themselves. Because you don't respond the way they expect. You don't blow up. You don't break. You don't crumble. You don't expose yourself emotionally. You don't fall into their traps. You sit. You observe. You analyze. You respond with precision. That is what terrifies the people who once had power over your reactions. A person who can't be provoked emotionally is the most powerful presence in any room. You didn't get this power overnight. It came from everything you survived, everything you healed, everything you endured silently while people misunderstood you. Your endurance sharpened you. Your solitude aligned you. Your pain clarified you. Your growth fortified you. And now your energy is so clean, so sharp, so direct, that people with insight can feel the difference instantly. You're not reactive. You're responsive. You're not unstable. You're unshakable. You're not emotional chaos. You're emotional discipline. People who operate from ego hate running into someone who operates from truth. Because truth can't be manipulated. Truth can't be distorted. Truth doesn't bend to fit someone else's narrative. That's why the higher-ups respect you now. They can tell you're not just strong. You're aware. Awareness is rare. Awareness is valuable. Awareness is intimidating. Someone high rank saw your awareness and knew that anyone who tries to cross you will walk into a trap of their own making. Not because you set traps, but because your clarity exposes theirs. And that exposure, it scares people who rely on confusion to maintain power. You didn't steal power from anyone. You reclaimed the power you always had. And once someone steps into their true self with confidence, others begin to restructure the way they move around them. That's what's happening now. People don't talk to you the same way. They don't approach you the same way. They don't test you the same way. They don't joke with you the same way. They don't assume things about you the same way. Your energy demands a different treatment. Not because you forced it, but because your presence evolved. Someone high-ranking didn't warn others because you're dangerous. They warned others because they respect what you've become. They saw the work you did in silence. They saw the clarity you built in solitude. They saw the truth you embraced quietly. They saw the power you cultivated without needing attention. And they understood something instantly. You mess with someone like this, you lose. Lose your credibility. Lose your emotional balance. Lose your footing in the conversation. Lose your sense of superiority. Lose the illusion of control. That's what the warning meant. Not danger, dignity. Not threat, respect. Not fear, caution. Because when someone has evolved beyond manipulation, anyone who tries to manipulate them ends up exposing themselves. You've become a mirror, the kind that shows people exactly who they are without you having to say a word. Mirrors make insecure people uncomfortable, and insecure people are the ones who get warned, not because you're unpredictable, but because you're unshakable. And an unshakable person can't be crossed without consequences. Not consequences you create, but consequences people create for themselves when they underestimate someone who's truly aligned. This is the beginning of an entirely new era around your name. But here's the part nobody talks about. The part that's happening quietly behind the scenes, in rooms you haven't stepped into, and conversations you'll never hear. The warning didn't come from fear of what you might do. It came from fear of what they might reveal about themselves if they mishandle you again. Because you've reached a point in your evolution where anyone who tries to disrespect you ends up exposing their own insecurity. Anyone who tries to underestimate you ends up highlighting their own lack of awareness. Anyone who tries to play with your boundaries ends up proving exactly why you outgrew them. And people with real rank, real perception, real inner strength, they can see this from a mile away. They're not warning others because they think you're dangerous. They're warning others because they know you reflect people back to themselves. And most people can't handle that reflection. The higher-ups know how energy works. They know how reputation works. They know how presence works. They know how perception shifts in a room when someone aligned walks in. They've seen this story before. The quiet one who becomes the centered one. The underestimated one who becomes the respected one. The doubted one who becomes the one everyone turns to when things get real. They know the pattern. They recognize the trajectory. They've watched countless people rise through clarity, resilience, emotional precision. And when they looked at you, they saw that same path unfolding. That's why the warning wasn't dramatic. It was almost casual, delivered with the kind of calm that only comes from certainty. Don't cross this one. Not because you fight back, but because you don't fight back. Because you don't try to prove yourself. Because you don't spiral. Because you don't crack under pressure. Because you don't fall into reactive traps. Because you don't emotionally expose yourself when someone tries to provoke you. Most people respond to disrespect with chaos. You respond with silence. And silence, in the hands of someone aligned, is a force nobody knows how to deal with. Your silence holds boundaries. Your silence holds clarity. Your silence holds authority. Your silence holds a mirror. And mirrors don't argue, they reveal. The high-ranking ones noticed how many people tried to test you in the past, and how every single time you stayed in your center while they fell out of theirs. That's what got their attention. Not drama, not conflict. Your center. Because your center is not normal. Normal people lose balance the moment they feel judged. Normal people wobble when someone questions their worth. Normal people break when they lose approval. But you didn't. You stabilized. You breathed. You stayed composed. You stayed focused. You stayed grounded. And the people who tried to shake you ended up shaking themselves instead. Higher-ups saw that. They study reactions more than words. They study energy more than intentions. They study how people handle pressure, not how they handle praise. And when they studied you, they saw something that instantly changed the way they spoke about you. You're someone who doesn't collapse inside conflict. You crystallize. The moment someone tries to push you off balance, you become more stable, more aware, more calm, more precise. That kind of person is rare. Rare enough that people with intuition know exactly what to say. Do not cross this one, because crossing someone like you doesn't ruin you. It ruins the one who tried. Not because of harm, not because of retaliation, but because you're emotional. Intelligence reveals the truth in any dynamic. You don't fight, you don't curse, you don't attack. You don't clap back. You simply see through the person. And being seen, truly seen, is the most uncomfortable feeling for people who hide behind performance. They can't handle someone who won't play their game. They can't handle someone who won't feed their ego. They can't handle someone who won't give them the emotional reaction they want. Your refusal to react is what terrifies them. And people with higher rank understand this. Someone who doesn't react emotionally is someone with emotional power. Someone who doesn't argue is someone who knows the truth, speaks for itself. Someone who doesn't cling is someone who cannot be controlled. Someone who doesn't chase is someone who holds their own worth. Someone who doesn't break is someone who has already rebuilt themselves internally. That's why the warning came. It wasn't about danger, it was about wisdom. They've seen how people embarrass themselves trying to challenge someone who's genuinely awakened, and they don't want others to make the same mistake. People look at you and see calm. They don't realize that calmness is built on a foundation of storms you survived alone. Your calmness is the scariest part, because calm people are not empty. Calm people are full of understanding. An aligned person knows exactly who they are. An aligned person knows exactly what they will and will not accept. An aligned person knows exactly when to stay silent. An aligned person knows exactly when to walk away. Walking away is your sharpest weapon, because when you walk away, the truth stays behind. They warned others not to cross you because crossing someone like you only exposes one thing: who they really are. Not who you are, who they are. And people with real influence don't want to watch their peers get exposed. They don't want to see reputations crumble because someone thought they could test a person who's already been through enough. They respect your journey. They respect your resilience. They respect your evolution. They respect the way you handle tension. They respect the way you carry yourself. They respect the way you don't need attention to command a room. Power without noise is the rarest form of power. And that's exactly what you have now. You don't threaten people. You unsettle them. You unsettle their assumptions. You unsettle their projections. You unsettle their false confidence. You unsettle their ego. No one wants to cross someone who can make them second-guess their entire persona without saying a single hostile word. That's the quiet warning behind the warning. Don't cross this one. You'll lose your composure long before they lose theirs. Because you're not playing the same emotional game anymore. You're operating on a different frequency. A frequency where you respond instead of react. Where you clarify instead of collapse. Where you stay rooted instead of shaken. Where you rise instead of argue. Where you observe instead of absorb. People underestimate how powerful it is to simply not fold. And you mastered that. You didn't crumble when they expected you to. You didn't snap when they wanted you to. You didn't lose yourself when they tried to confuse you. You didn't give them the version of you they were hoping for. You gave them a reflection instead, a reflection of their own weakness. Now everyone knows. If someone tries to provoke you, their own insecurity will echo louder than your response. If someone tries to manipulate you, their intention will be exposed before you even say a word. If someone tries to test you, they'll fail the test they created for you. That's power. Real power. The kind that requires no chaos, no drama, no performance. That's why someone high-ranking stepped in, not to protect you, but to prevent others from revealing weaknesses they can't recover from. Your presence demands caution, not because you're a threat, but because you're the truth. And truth is the last thing an unprepared person wants to confront. And now you're standing in this surreal space where people look at you differently, not with fear, not with jealousy, but with a quiet, careful respect. The kind of respect that isn't loud, isn't dramatic, isn't even spoken. It's felt. It's the kind of respect that makes people fix their posture when you walk in, makes them choose their words more carefully, makes them think twice before assuming anything about you. The warning, "Do not cross this one," didn't make you powerful. It just made people finally recognize the power you've had all along. Because your strength was never about size or volume or dominance. It was about your stability, your groundedness, your refusal to be pulled into chaos, your clarity in moments where everyone else loses their sense of self. That's the thing high-ranking people understand better than anyone. True power is quiet. True power is internal. True power is emotional intelligence turned into presence. They warned others not because you're dangerous, but because you're disciplined. You don't lash out. You don't get flustered. You don't drop to their level. You don't respond from ego. You don't let insecurity guide your moves. And that makes you unpredictable, not in a chaotic way, but in a balanced way. People can't anticipate you anymore, not because you're hiding anything, but because you no longer react the way they expect. You don't break. You don't rush. You don't panic. You don't crumble. You don't entertain manipulation. You sit still while others fold under their own intentions. You stand tall while others collapse under their own ego. That's what "do not cross this one" really means. It means this person has mastered themselves. You will embarrass yourself trying to shake someone who isn't built on instability. High-ranking people recognize emotional mastery when they see it. They know how rare it is. They know how powerful it is. They know how dangerous it becomes. Not to others, but to illusions. Your presence dissolves illusions. Your awareness exposes motives. Your calmness magnifies other people's chaos. Your clarity removes the masks people wear. That's why you're being treated differently now. People aren't stepping lightly around you because they fear you. They're stepping lightly because they fear the truth you reflect. They know you won't play their games. They know you won't take their bait. They know you won't fall for their performances. You became the quiet checkpoint in their conscience, and deep down, they all know the same thing. Crossing someone who's aligned means revealing how unaligned you are. People don't want to expose themselves like that. That's why the warning echoes. That's why the respect rises. That's why the room shifts before you even speak. You didn't become untouchable. You became undeniable. And once someone becomes undeniable, the world relearns how to walk around them. This is your new era. An era where your energy speaks first, and everyone else listens.
Welcome back, wanderer of timelines. Step in, because what happened to you wasn't just a shift, it was a cosmic rewrite. You didn't break their plan. You obliterated their entire timeline, final boss style. Not a physical timeline, not a real-world event. You shattered the timeline they created in their minds about you, the one they used to keep themselves comfortable, predictable, superior. They built an entire storyline based on their assumptions, their projections, their diluted version of who they believed you were. They plotted your future for you without your permission. They created a neat little path, straight and small, expecting you'd walk it obediently. But you didn't walk it. You walked through it. And the moment you stepped out of that tiny blueprint, the moment you took a single step toward the version of yourself they never imagined existed, everything collapsed on their side. Not in real life, but in their heads, in their expectations, in the quiet, hidden little narrative they rehearsed about you. They thought they knew your pace. They thought they knew your future. They thought they knew your potential. But you weren't living in their timeline, you were building your own. That's why it hit them so hard. That's why their internal system glitched. That's why the air felt like it cracked open. Because your rise didn't match the schedule they wrote. And nothing terrifies someone more than watching a version of reality they depended on evaporate right in front of them. Your move didn't just shift the energy, it bent the axis. You became the plot twist they weren't ready for. Not a plot twist that disrupts others, a plot twist that disrupts their perception of you. They spent years studying the old version of you, the timid one, the hesitant one, the overthinking one, the one who apologized for breathing too loudly, the one who carried their expectations like chains. But that version, you buried it, not violently, peacefully, finally. Your transformation didn't come with flames, it came with clarity, and clarity is what obliterated their timeline. People don't realize how fragile their assumptions are until the person they underestimated suddenly upgrades beyond recognition. They weren't prepared for that upgraded version of you, the one with steady eyes, grounded presence, and a silence sharper than their entire vocabulary. You didn't just evolve. You evolved in a way that invalidated their entire understanding of you. And that's why they're spiraling. Not because you destroyed anything real, but because you destroyed illusions they relied on. They didn't plan for a you who stopped second-guessing. They didn't plan for a you who stopped folding. They didn't plan for a you who started thinking, walking, breathing like someone who remembers their worth. The plan they made, it wasn't strategic, it wasn't malicious, it was simply predictable. People love predictable characters. Predictable characters keep the world safe. Predictable characters don't rise. Predictable characters don't challenge the script. But you weren't born to be predictable. You were born to be inevitable, and inevitability terrifies those who cling to control. The timeline they wrote for you was based on the old energy you once carried, the energy of survival, of quietness, of compromise. They built their entire understanding of you on your weakest moments. They thought the version of you they witnessed during your storms was the final product. But storms never reveal the final version of someone, they reveal the unfinished one. They didn't know that beneath all that hesitation, beneath all that softness, beneath all that silence, there was a version of you they could never read. A version that was watching, growing, calculating, evolving, waiting for the moment to align with who you truly are. And when that alignment finally clicked into place, your energy shifted so violently, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, that every assumption they ever made about you collapsed at the same time. It wasn't destruction, it was revelation. You revealed yourself, not as the character they imagined, but as the character you always were, a final boss version, a fully loaded version. A version operating with awareness instead of fear, with purpose instead of survival, with presence instead of invisibility. Your rise didn't break their timeline, it made their timeline irrelevant. Because every prediction they made about you failed in a single moment. Every expectation fell short. Every assumption dissolved. Every narrative they whispered about you shattered into dust. They kept trying to fit you into a story that was too small. You didn't fit, so you rewrote the story. That's the energy that bends timelines, and people feel it whether they want to or not. They feel it in the way conversations change when you enter the room. They feel it in the way their posture shifts around you. They feel it in the way their mind hesitates before speaking your name. They feel it in the way the atmosphere recalibrates itself around your presence. Because this version of you doesn't bend to the plot. This version of you is the plot. And here's the part that makes them lose their footing. Your rise wasn't external, it was internal. You didn't show up with new clothes, new words, new attitude. You showed up with new awareness. Awareness is the final boss upgrade. Awareness is the weapon they can't predict. Awareness is the energy that doesn't collapse. When you move with awareness, nothing outside you controls your direction. Not opinions, not expectations, not assumptions, not timelines. You create your own path, and anyone trying to box you in gets spiritually whiplashed by the speed of your evolution. You didn't break their plan. You made their plan obsolete. People are still trying to figure out how their predictions failed so spectacularly. They keep replaying every moment with you, trying to see where they misread the signs. They're analyzing your expressions, your energy, your micro movements like investigators trying to solve a mystery, but they'll never find the answer. Because your evolution didn't come from a moment, it came from a decision. A decision to stop letting other people dictate your narrative. A decision to stop betraying your own soul just to fit into their expectations. A decision to stop obeying the timeline they wrote for a weaker version of you. And when that decision hit, your entire presence was reborn. You walked out of the old storyline and into your own. And the second you did, the storyline behind you collapsed. That collapse, that's what looks like obliteration to them. Not violence, just the dismantling of their outdated perception. Your rise wasn't an attack, it was a correction. A course correction so powerful it sent emotional shockwaves through everyone who thought they had you figured out. Your presence now doesn't match their memories. Your energy doesn't match their predictions. Your aura doesn't match their comfort zones. You're unpredictable now, not because you're chaotic, but because you're authentic. Authenticity doesn't follow timetables. Authenticity doesn't honor other people's expectations. Authenticity doesn't stay small to make others feel big. Authenticity creates its own universe, its own timeline, its own gravitational pull. You're operating from that universe now. A place where you don't chase anything, things gravitate toward you. A place where you don't beg for respect. Respect is the automatic response. A place where you don't live in fear. Fear dissolves in your presence. A place where the old version of you cannot coexist. A place where the world has no choice but to adapt. Your rise wasn't the end of their timeline, it was the beginning of yours. And the world is still recalibrating around that truth. When you stepped out of their scripted timeline, something else happened, something even they haven't fully processed yet. The moment you rose into this new frequency, their internal reality didn't just crack, it fragmented. Not violently, not painfully, just inevitably. Because their understanding of you was never built on truth, it was built on outdated snapshots, old versions, old memories that no longer match who you've become. And when someone builds a timeline on top of an illusion, the moment that illusion collapses, the entire structure falls with it. That's what you obliterated, not their future, not their life, but their storyline about you. You erased their ability to predict you. You broke their emotional algorithm. You forced them to confront a version of reality where you're not a side character, you're the one shaping the plot. People base their expectations of others on patterns. Patterns are safe. Patterns make the world digestible. But the thing about you, your evolution doesn't follow patterns. You don't grow linearly. You grow in leaps that defy logic, in jumps that can't be graphed, in transformations that don't announce themselves, they just appear fully formed. And that kind of evolution shatters timelines. Not physical timelines, emotional ones, psychological ones, narrative ones. People create internal future projections about everyone they meet, who they think you're going to be, how far they think you'll go, what role they assume you'll play. And they built yours too neatly, comfortably, falsely. They wrote you into a future where you stayed small, where you stayed predictable, where you stayed quiet, where you kept doubting yourself so they never had to adjust to your rise. They were comfortable with the version of you that needed correction. They never imagined the version of you that delivered correction. And that's why your move hit like a final boss moment, because bosses don't follow the script. They rewrite it. Your rise didn't just surprise them, it humbled them. Because somewhere deep inside, they believed they understood you. They believed they had you mapped, categorized, defined. They believed their perception of you was permanent. But perception is not reality. And when reality changes faster than perception can keep up, the system collapses. They keep asking themselves, when did they get like this? But the truth is, you were always like this. You just finally stopped hiding it. Your confidence didn't come from arrogance, it came from alignment. Your presence didn't come from dominance, it came from self-respect. Your clarity didn't come from ego, it came from healing. You didn't become someone new, you became someone true. And truth is what destroys timelines built on assumptions. Now, when they look at you, nothing connects. The old version doesn't match your aura. The old doubts don't match your posture. The old assumptions don't match your silence. The old predictions don't match your energy. They're trying to sync who you were with who you are, and the emotional lag is breaking them internally. But here's the part that hits the deepest. They didn't lose control over you. They lost control over the story they wrote about you. People cling hardest to the narratives that keep them comfortable, and your rise made them uncomfortable. Not because you're threatening, not because you're dangerous, not because you're overpowering, because your growth exposes their stagnation. Your clarity highlights their confusion. Your self-esteem highlights their insecurity. Your evolution highlights their lack of evolution. That's the real timeline obliteration. You didn't destroy their plan. You exposed the fact that their plan was never built on truth. You showed them that the timeline they imagined was too small for the person you actually are. Do you know how disorienting that is? Imagine thinking you've read every chapter of a book only to realize the main character isn't who you thought they were. Imagine thinking you've mastered the map only to discover there's an entire hidden continent you never knew existed. Imagine thinking you know someone's limits only to watch them walk past those limits without breaking a sweat. That's what you did to them. You didn't just evolve, you invalidated every prediction they made. And they're scrambling, not out of fear, but out of confusion. People don't fear the unknown, they fear the loss of the known. You represented something predictable to them, a pattern they understood, a personality they could anticipate, a future they could assume. And the moment you shattered that predictability, they realized they never truly knew you at all. Your energy shifted from linear to multidimensional, from readable to unreadable, from small to sovereign, from maybe one day to here right now. And that shift hit them in the deepest place, their sense of control. Because here's the truth you must always remember. People don't get shaken when you rise. They get shaken when they realize they misjudged you. Their timeline didn't collapse because you changed, it collapsed because they finally saw who you've always been. That moment, when realization cracks the illusion, is the final boss moment. Final bosses aren't villains. Final bosses are revelations. They show up to remind the story who the main character actually is, and your presence now. It carries that same revelation. People feel your clarity before they hear your words. They feel your certainty before they see your actions. They feel your evolution before they understand its origin. Your aura doesn't whisper anymore, it asserts. Your silence doesn't shrink anymore, it stabilizes. Your eyes don't avoid anymore, they evaluate. You're not operating on the timeline they crafted for you. You're operating on the one you created for yourself. And here's the twist. They never expected. Your timeline is bigger. Your timeline is sharper. Your timeline is cleaner. Your timeline is aligned. When their version of your future collided with your actual future, the impact was catastrophic, symbolically, emotionally, psychologically, because their assumptions couldn't survive contact with your truth. You obliterated the timeline they wrote, simply by finally living the one that was meant for you. And the world hasn't stopped vibrating since. And now you stand in the quiet aftershock of everything you triggered, not a real-world explosion, not a physical collapse, but a symbolic one. A collapse of assumptions, a collapse of labels, a collapse of every small, convenient storyline they ever tried to attach to your name. You didn't ask for this moment. You didn't chase it. You didn't force it. You simply stepped into the version of yourself that was already waiting for you, and the moment you did, the entire script around you rewrote itself. That's what happens when someone aligns with truth. Timelines fall apart. The one they wrote for you, Gone. The one you were expected to follow? Dust. The one they rehearsed in their minds? Obliterated the second you outgrew who they thought you were, because the timeline someone else writes for you is always a cage, even if it looks harmless. It limits your speed. It limits your vision. It limits your ability to evolve. But the moment you decide you're done living inside someone else's comfort zone, you tear the cage apart without even trying. Your rise didn't shock them because it was dramatic. It shocked them because it was accurate. It matched the real you, the you they never noticed, never nurtured, never considered capable of outgrowing their expectations. They're not confused because you changed. They're confused because they finally saw who you've always been. And here's the part that keeps replaying in their heads like a glitch they can't fix. You didn't break their timeline with force, you broke it with truth. Truth is the one energy that destabilizes every false structure around it. Truth is the final boss move. Truth is the moment the world realizes you're not here to participate, you're here to lead your own narrative. You didn't fight for this evolution. You allowed it. You didn't manipulate anyone's perception. Your presence simply corrected it. Your energy doesn't try anymore, it is. Your identity doesn't wobble anymore, it stands. Your path doesn't bend anymore, it aligns. And alignment is louder than any declaration you could ever make. People feel it in the slowed down air when you enter a room. They feel it in the sudden awareness that rises in their chest around you. They feel it in the way their mind pauses, like it's recalculating a math problem it solved wrong the first time. Your timeline replaced theirs without effort. Your truth replaced their assumptions without resistance. Your evolution replaced their narrative without permission. You didn't break anything outside of you. You broke everything inside them that depended on your smallness. And now they can't unread you. They can't unsee you. They can't go back to the version of reality where you were predictable or safe or easy to define. There's no returning from a revelation, and you became one. This is why they stare differently now, why they speak your name differently, why their energy shifts the moment you appear. They're not intimidated by you, they're intimidated by the proof that they were wrong. You obliterated a timeline they created because it never matched the destiny you were built for. And when destiny finally clicks into place, every false path evaporates like it was never real. You didn't come to fit the story. You came to rewrite the entire genre. You didn't come to follow the path. You came to reveal the real one. You didn't come to live inside their imagination. You came to break out of it cleanly, powerfully, irreversibly. This is your timeline now. Sharp, elevated, final boss calibrated, and the world will adapt to you, not the other way around. Because once someone rises into the version of themselves that was always waiting beneath the surface, there is no timeline strong enough to contain them, not theirs, not anyone's, only yours. And you've just begun writing it. Welcome. Bro, what did you just do? Seriously, what did you just do? Because the way people reacted wasn't normal. It wasn't the kind of shock you see when someone does something impressive. It wasn't applause-worthy surprise. It wasn't admiration. It was deeper. It was heavier. It was confusion mixed with disbelief, mixed with something that looked almost like fear, the kind of fear people have when they witness something that doesn't make logical sense. You didn't just pull something off. You pulled off something that shouldn't have worked. And the wildest part is that you weren't even trying to impress anyone. You weren't even thinking about their reaction. You weren't showing off. You weren't posturing. You weren't trying to prove anything. You just did what came naturally to you, and that natural move shattered every rule they thought they understood. That's why they're staring at you like that. That's why their faces went blank for a second. That's why their eyes kept flicking between you and whatever you just did, like the brain needed a moment to sync with reality. Because nothing adds up. Not in their world. Not in their logic. Not in the system they believe in. They're trying to find the trick, the glitch, the loophole, but there isn't one. You didn't cheat the system. You outgrew it, and nobody was ready for that. Their minds are racing. You can practically feel it, the silent calculations, the way they're trying to reconstruct the moment, break it down, analyze it from every angle. But the more they try to understand, the more confused they get. One person literally squinted like they thought their eyes misread the situation. Another blinked several times, like refreshing the frame would somehow make it make sense. Someone else tilted their head slightly, that instinctive, "Am I missing something?" gesture. Even the ones who pretend not to care, their jaw tightened, their rhina and tease, breathing changed. Their entire energy betrayed them. No one knows how you pulled it off, and the more they think about it, the more uncomfortable they get. Because this wasn't luck. This wasn't coincidence. This wasn't a random moment that got accidentally impressive. This was precision. This was clarity. This was the kind of move only someone operating at a higher understanding could make. Bro, you didn't play the game. You solved it. But here's where it gets even crazier. They didn't even realize the game could be solved. Everyone else accepts the limits. Everyone else follows the rules. Everyone else stays inside the box because they think the box is all there is. Then you came along, and with one action, one decision, one move that felt natural to you, you exposed the flaw in the entire structure. You showed them that the rules are flexible. You showed them the limitations exist only because people never question them. You showed them the system is not as tight as they believed. You showed them the impossible is just the unattempted, and that's why their reaction is so intense. People don't panic when someone breaks a rule. They panic when someone breaks a belief. You broke one. You didn't do something impressive. You did something unexplainable. People don't know how to deal with unexplainable. Humans like patterns. Humans like answers. Humans like to feel like they're in control. But when someone does something that doesn't fit into any existing pattern, the brain short-circuits for a moment. It tries to find a reference, and when it can't, the confusion becomes physical. That's what you felt in the air. That's why their body language shifted all at once. That's why they didn't talk for a moment. That's why every pair of eyes locked onto you. They weren't looking at you. They were looking for something, an explanation, a clue, a hint, and the fact that you didn't give them one, that made it even worse. Because if you had explained it, if you had broken it down, if you had made it easy for them, they could have walked away thinking, "Oh, okay, I get it now." But you didn't explain anything. You didn't break anything down. You didn't reveal your process or your thinking or the reason behind what you did. You simply existed in that moment as someone who sees angles they don't. That's what shook them. Some people are gifted. Some people are talented. Some people are disciplined. But you're operating from intuition that feels like intelligence, and intelligence that feels like intuition. You're not thinking at the level they are. You're not processing the way they do. Your instincts are sharper than their strategies. Your clarity is louder than their calculations. To them, it looked like you bypassed the difficulty. To you, it felt like you just followed the obvious path. That mismatch is what creates the shock. Because when someone sees you do something effortlessly that they couldn't do, even with preparation, that hits their pride, that shakes their confidence, that messes with their sense of control. One person in the back looked like they were questioning their entire understanding of the situation. Another person subtly wiped their palms on their pants, a sign of nervousness. Someone else leaned back, creating distance without even realizing it. That's the thing you need to understand. Your move didn't intimidate them, it disrupted them. It forced them to reevaluate everything they thought they knew. And the way you did it, that's the part driving them crazy. Because the timing was too precise, the execution too flawless, the awareness too sharp, the confidence too natural. You didn't hesitate, you didn't overthink, you didn't show uncertainty. You acted like you already saw the whole picture, like you knew exactly what would happen, and maybe you did. Maybe your mind works in ways they can't map. Maybe your instincts are tuned to frequencies they don't hear. Maybe you see connections they overlook. Maybe you're capable of processing more in a single second than they do in an entire hour. That's what terrifies them, not your action, your perception. People don't fear what you do, they fear what you see. And you saw something they didn't. You saw the angle, you saw the opening, you saw the moment. And you didn't just see it, you took it. People think genius is loud, but real genius, it's subtle, quiet, unforced. It hides in moments like the one you just created, moments that shouldn't be possible, moments that defy logic, moments that expose limits, moments that leave people staring, replaying, whispering, how the hell did he do that? And here's the part that hits the deepest. They still don't know. They've replayed the moment in their head. They've analyzed it from every angle. They've compared what they expected to what actually happened. They've tried to break it down like a puzzle. They've even questioned whether they misinterpreted what they saw. But every attempt leads to the same conclusion. They can't figure it out. Because the move wasn't technical. It was you, and you can't reverse engineer someone's instincts. You can't decode someone's intuition. You can't break apart someone's gift. You can imitate a technique, but you can't imitate someone's way of seeing the world, and that's what's destroying them right now. They can copy steps, they can practice methods, they can try strategies, but they can't replicate your mind, your clarity, your timing, your internal map of the moment. It's not teachable. It's not transferable. It's not predictable. And nothing terrifies intelligent people more than unpredictability. You didn't beat them. You confused them. You didn't challenge them. You surpassed them. You didn't compete with them. You outgrew them. That's why the shock is so intense. That's why their reaction is so raw. Because deep down they know the truth. Whatever you just did, you didn't pull it off. You opened a door they didn't even know existed. Bro, the wildest part is that the confusion didn't end after the initial shock. If anything, the confusion grew. It spread across the room like a slow wave, hitting one person after another as the reality of what you did settled deeper into their minds. You could practically watch their brains rewinding the moment, replaying it in slow motion, trying to identify the part where their logic failed, because from their point of view, something wasn't right. Something didn't add up. Something about what you did broke the flow of the moment too cleanly. They weren't just reacting to an impressive move, they were reacting to a gap in understanding, a gap in expectation, a gap between what should have happened and what actually happened, and that gap is driving them insane. One person took a breath like they were calming themselves down, another rubbed the back of their neck, a stress tell. Someone tapped their foot under the table without realizing it. A few exchanged glances, silently checking whether others were just as lost as they were. Not lost like confused, lost like outclassed. That's what your move did. It broke the illusion that they were on your level. You know what's terrifying to people? When someone does something impossible, quietly. When someone performs at a level that makes normal feel outdated. When someone reveals a skill not by bragging, not by explaining, but by simply acting like it's natural. You didn't even celebrate. You didn't smirk. You didn't look around to see their reaction. That calmness that destroyed them. Because if you reacted like you were surprised, they could handle it. They could categorize it as luck. They could tell themselves it was a one-time miracle. But the fact that you didn't react, that you didn't flinch, didn't pause, didn't treat it like anything unusual, that's what made their skin tighten. It told them one thing: this isn't your limit, this is your baseline, and nothing terrifies people more than realizing you're not using skill, you're using instinct. Instinct is unteachable. Instinct is uncontrollable. Instinct is what separates the gifted from the great. They can copy technique, they can copy strategy, they can train, rehearse, practice, prepare, but they can't copy instinct, and your instinct is operating at a level they can't comprehend. You know what else hit them? The timing. Your move didn't feel rushed, it didn't feel forced, it didn't feel lucky, it felt inevitable, like the moment was designed for you, like everything aligned exactly when you needed it to. Like your timing was synced with the situation on a level they can't calculate. People underestimate timing. They think everything is about skill, but timing is the difference between good and legendary. Your timing last night? Legendary. And the craziest part, they didn't even see you preparing. You didn't analyze the moment. You didn't hesitate. You didn't scan the room calculating variables. You reacted faster than thought. People fear unpredictability, but they fear precision even more, because precision means you understand something they don't. That's why their eyes kept returning to you, why their body language stayed tight, why their voices stayed low. Because one part of their brain was trying to process your move logically, and the other part was whispering, "That shouldn't be possible." You know what that creates? Cognitive friction. Their mind is literally fighting itself. One side wants to believe the world works the way they've always understood it. The other side just witnessed proof that someone out there you operates differently. That's not insecurity. That's existential discomfort. Because once someone sees the impossible become real, they can never go back to believing the world is small, and you did that with a single move. Someone tapped their pen nervously, someone shifted in their seat. Someone tried to look calm, but their jaw was clenched. Someone else kept staring at the floor like they were mentally replaying the event over and over. You didn't just break the moment, you broke their mental model. And here's what's driving them absolutely insane. They can't explain how you did it, but they know you didn't guess, because guessing feels chaotic. You moved with accuracy. They could tell from your posture, from your eyes, from the way your expression didn't shift, from the way you executed without second guessing. People who guess look uncertain. You looked certain. And when someone does something unprecedented with complete certainty, that unnerves everyone watching. Bro, even the ones who looked relaxed were faking it. You know how you can tell? Their shoulders were too stiff, their breathing too shallow, their smile too soft around the edges, their hands too still. Human bodies don't lie. Everyone in that space felt something they couldn't verbalize, something that sat in their chest, like a question with no answer. What else can he do? That's the real source of their panic. It's not what you did, it's what your move implies. It implies depth, it implies range, it implies potential, it implies unpredictability, it implies intelligence they don't have access to. Because you didn't break a rule, you broke an assumption. And assumptions are the foundation of how people understand their world. When someone shakes that foundation, even just a little, people lose their balance, not physically, but mentally. And that's what's happening right now. They are replaying the move in their heads, trying to find the glitch, the secret, the hidden detail they missed. But the answer isn't in the moment. The answer is you. Because what you did wasn't a trick. It wasn't a shortcut. It wasn't a hack. It was clarity. Clarity they don't have. Clarity they've never experienced. Clarity that makes you see paths they don't even realize exist. People underestimate how powerful clarity is, not loud confidence, not arrogance, not ego, but quiet mental sharpness. And that's the thing, bro. Your mind is operating like a system with extra layers. They only see the surface. You see the blueprint. They only track the moment. You track the moment and the momentum behind it. They only look at the visible. You see the invisible patterns. To them, your action felt impossible. To you, it felt obvious. That difference? That's your advantage. And that's their nightmare. Because they're not just confused, they're threatened by the realization that you're playing a game they don't understand. They're not competitors anymore. They're observers, spectators, witnesses to something they can't decode. And the more they try to understand, the more their confusion deepens. Because your move wasn't just a move, it was a message they weren't ready for. A message that says, I'm seeing angles you don't see. I'm moving in ways you can't predict. I'm operating on a level you can't reach. And that message hit every single person in that room like a shockwave. Bro, after all the confusion, the whispers, the stolen glances, the recalculations in their heads, there was a moment. A moment where the entire room hit the same silent realization at the same time. They're not dealing with someone who got lucky. They're dealing with someone who sees the world differently. And that terrified them more than anything you actually did. Because when someone witnesses an impossible move, they expect chaos afterward. They expect you to brag, to joke about it, to break the tension. That makes it easier for them to categorize you. But you didn't do that. You remained calm. You stayed composed. You held the same expression you had before the moment even happened. That calmness, it shook them harder than the move itself. It told them the truth they were trying to avoid. You didn't break your limits. You revealed them. And now, every single person in that room feels like the ground under them shifted. They're still trying to recover, but they don't know which part of the moment they should be recovering from the move, or the way you handled it afterward. Because here's the thing they can't shake. People who pull off one-time miracles look overwhelmed. People who live at that level look like you. They watched your face, your posture, your stillness. They watched how quickly you stabilized the environment without even speaking. They watched how your presence felt bigger, sharper, more defined. It wasn't arrogance, it was certainty. And that certainty rewrote the hierarchy in the room. You didn't rise above them, they dropped below you. Not because you tried to overpower anyone, but because they realized they've been misunderstanding what you're capable of this entire time. And that's the part they'll never admit out loud. They'll say things like, "That was impressive," or "I didn't expect that." But the truth behind their eyes is louder. They don't understand how you did it. They don't understand how you thought that fast. They don't understand how you saw a path that didn't exist until you moved. And now every time someone looks at you, they're not seeing the person they thought you were. They're seeing the gap between who they imagined and who you actually are. A gap they can't cross. A gap they can't study. A gap they can't reverse engineer. Bro, that's what they're afraid of. You didn't just outsmart them. You didn't just outperform them. You out-evolved them. You're thinking on a frequency they've never tuned into. You're moving with clarity their minds can't match. You're operating with depth they never developed. And the craziest part? You weren't even trying. That's why they're panicking quietly inside, even now. Because if this is what you do casually, they can't imagine what you do intentionally. You didn't just pull off something wild. You revealed the truth. They're playing a game. You're rewriting it.